Have you ever wondered if you're the biggest bottleneck in your own business and why that is? Maybe it feels like every decision, every problem, every loose end somehow lands on your desk. It's a frustrating cycle. It's one that robs you of time and energy and freedom to grow your company. But imagine flipping that dynamic, building a structure where you're not just putting out fires, but you're actually leading with clarity and vision. Hey, you're listening to the Construction Leading Edge podcast, where it's all about systematizing your construction business to eliminate chaos and maximize profit, freedom, and impact. My name is Todd DeWalt, and my team and I have helped over 400 construction companies eliminate chaos, grow their profits, and grow their team. Today on the show, we're digging into this question: what if the real key to growth and freedom isn't another hire on your crew or out in the field, but it's a redefined role behind the scenes? What if there's a missing piece? That's the key. To help us unpack that question, we're joined by Steven Neuner, entrepreneur and co-founder of Superpowers, a company that's dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and founders work in their unique ability zones. In this episode, you're going to learn 3 key things, plus a lot more. Number 1, why many entrepreneurs misunderstand what true delegation looks like. Number 2, how to identify if you are, in fact, the bottleneck that's slowing down your business. Number 3, what it means to implement flipped delegation and how that can change everything in your business. And there's a particularly revealing moment where Steven shares how burnout, not competition, could have been the number 1 reason he was able to buy out rival companies. So if you're ready to reclaim your time, energy, and focus and have more freedom to work on your business, then stick around for this episode of The Construction Leading Edge. Enjoy. Steven, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me here.
Let's talk about how people are using executive assistants, remote executive assistants. And let's start with this. What would you say are the most common misconceptions you hear from entrepreneurs about remote executive assistants? And when we say remote, we're talking about people who aren't sitting in your office, they're somewhere else. But what are the most common misconceptions that you hear about that, Steven?
I think it really depends on the entrepreneur and the community that they're swimming in. I think it's the subject's almost blurry enough that a lot of people get confused in general. And so just by not having a clear definition and putting it into a blanket actually creates some of the confusion, because you have assistants that are project type of assistants that are really great for like a real specific focused task. Like I want a logo created and I want to go on Upwork. And so we call that a project assistance. And then you have people that hire what we would call a VA, which would be like a process assistant. You've got a defined outcome, a clear process, and you want someone to just manage that process. But where we've really seen the greatest lift to the entrepreneur generally, personally and professionally, is actually in the idea of what we call a proactive assistant. Someone that is truly an executive assistant, a partner, a thinking partner in the business. They're looking around corners, and we call it flip delegation, where the entrepreneur is no longer delegating. They're still the boss, but the entrepreneur is the assistant is the leader in the relationship. So very different type of, framework. And I feel like most of the confusion occurs initially just from calling all of that an assistant.
I think a lot of people would say, well, it's just one more person I need to tell what to do. But what you're talking about is a little different. Can you talk a little bit more about the flipped delegation? You said where the EA, the executive assistant, is the leader in the relationship. I think that might surprise some people. It certainly surprised me. It was probably one of the things that led me to hire an executive assistant. But can you talk about the flipped delegation and what you mean by how the executive assistant is leading that relationship?
Sure. Yeah. And I'll talk about it in the way that it ideally works, or the way that we think about it anyway, is that they become the leader in the relationship. They're managing the entrepreneur's time, their energy, their to-do list. They're making sure that projects and things that the entrepreneur's up to, that they're getting the right amount of space. The challenge with that, I think, is the broken mindset. A lot of entrepreneurs go in and they say, this is just someone to handle my email and get off my calendar. Well, that's a really great way to get maybe a 1x or a 2x type of return on your investment. But the things that we really believe is the executive assistant, where the 10x return occurs for the entrepreneurs when they're actually like going through a process of helping the assistant know them, understand them, and know them well enough to actually begin to anticipate them. And then they're actually running ahead of the entrepreneur, basically setting things up. If you think about it, like we've all been to like maybe a play before or been to the theater, right? And so you have for a stage actor, you've got the front stage, right? And that's where the show happens. That's where the money is made. Everything occurs. And that's what we want, our audience to see. Then there's things that have to occur, a million things that have to happen on the backstage in order for that really great front stage, appearance to occur. So the way we think of an executive assistant is they're kind of like almost like a stage manager. So they're making sure that all the pieces and everything's getting in play in time, and all the reps are in there for rehearsing and being prepared so that our entrepreneurs can show up as their best self and really, really lean into their what we call superpower, their unique gift that they contribute to the business and to the world.
Speaking of superpowers, you co-founded an agency called Superpowers HQ. What led you to start that agency? Can you tell us that backstory?
Sure. Yeah. Back in the day, my first business was an insurance business. And so we had an insurance brokerage serving all types of customers, all entrepreneurs. We exclusively focused on serving entrepreneurial clients. And we handled business insurance, employee benefits, business insurance. So anyway, I joined an organization where you and I met through, Todd, called Strategic Coach, because I had a friend that had tremendous acceleration in his business and his freedom by joining the program. And so I was like, man, if I can just get half of what he would get, I'm in. And so I joined, and I had proof right in front of me. My friend was getting proof. Yeah, I was like, I want what he has, so I'm all in. So anything that they suggested that I tried it. I said, hey, if it doesn't work, I'll stop doing it or I'll tweak it or whatever, but why not try it? And so I tried it, and I did that, and we had success and growth in the business, and we learned a lot of things. But there was one thing I never would try, and that was something that suggested to me in the very first workshop, which is that, the language of the day that I took away was if you don't have an executive assistant, you are one. And I just kind of rejected that, gave it the Heisman. I'm not doing that. I'll do everything else, but I'm not doing that thing. Literally, we start growing and we're growing and we're growing. We're adding team members, and I'm adding team members to support my team members. And one day my CFO and my integrator or COO of the business came to me and said, hey, look, we love you and we appreciate all that you do to support us, but you're literally the bottleneck on everything in the business right now. And quite honestly, we're tired of being your assistant. Like, you're just a mess. And so we're literally telling you, this is an intervention. We're not hiring anyone else for this business until we get you some help. They took charge. They staged auditions. We had many, many people come through. They interviewed. They did test work. I got to meet them, of course, but they matched me. And I got to tell you, her name was Fern Knable, and we call her the queen of superpowers. Literally, it transformed my life. The business, I can easily tie back to 5x level of productivity, increased gain in the business, just from me not working in things that I could do, but I was really incompetent at, and really being freed up to focus on my unique giftings and really sort of being Frank Sinatra, just to get to show up and play the piano and do what I did really well to grow the business and at home, which was the other blind side I didn't see, which is how much having that type of support in my personal health. So fast forward, the business continued to grow. I had an incredible amount of freedom. I was enjoying all the fruits of all the things. And some of my clients would call, and they would ask me, they're like, hey man, how much do you pay Fern? Where did you get Fern? How do we get another Fern? And then a few of them would tempt. They were like, can I pay her more, take her away from you? And so I was like, you better not, I'll kill you. And so anyway, I said, if you will hire your Fern, here's what we did. Here's our interview process. If you will hire a Fern will mentor them. I'll pay Fern, and they can come sit with her for a few days. They can see how Fern and I work. And so that literally came, and then that eventually turned into, we also have to coach the entrepreneurs. Some of them had some real funky mindsets that were like running off good people. And so we had to help with that. And then we saw kind of community develop. And the fun fact of this whole thing, and this is the punchline that lands, the very first entrepreneur we supported in this way is actually my business partner, Ryan Casson. And his executive assistant that Fern trained is now our chief happiness officer, Amber, for the business.
A few things I want to unpack there. I want to talk about bottleneck. You said, I want to start with this. You said you found people had some funky mindsets that were running people off. What were some of the most common funky mindsets?
They had a 1950s type of mindset around executive assistant, like get my coffee, print this thing, handle this thing, right? Fern was planning father-daughter dates, and she was making sure that person I was procrastinating from hiring because I had confessed to her that I'm a recovering people pleaser and I don't always like conflict. She would make me do an impact filter and she would schedule the meeting. So I just couldn't get out of going to have that really hard conversation. So literally it's like I had a real partner that was helping me lean into my best self and the things we need to do for the business and at home. And when you have just this limited mindset and you see everything as a delegation down and you're less than me and everything else, well, we were seeing two things that come from that is one, you're telling the person that the work you're doing is not important. It's not valuable, right? Oftentimes they were also hiring people that they were either convincing them, if you'll just take this crappy job long enough to do it, I'll eventually promote you to another job, right? Like nobody would want to do this work as the sub. They weren't saying that directly, but as a sub message. And then the third thing is some of them were just overpaying. They hated the work so bad themselves and they were doing it that they just they overpaid it because they're like, no one's going to love doing this. And so they're way overpaying on the job. So those were just, a few right off the cuff that we would see just around the one really just broken mindset. And not because they're bad people, but literally just that's how they always that's how their dad or their grandpa's executive assistant was, right? Well, they also probably, smoked in their office building back then, and maybe that's not allowed, right? Things change.
Yeah.
But we say delegating up is the key to this relationship. If it's important enough for you to do, then you want someone that is passionate about it. And it's a delegate up. They're going to elevate the work. It's not a delegation down. And there are people out there that really, really love this kind of work. In fact, in our book, in the back of it, we've got letters from executive assistants who think this is their calling, like this is the best work they've ever done.
That's probably a misconception for a lot of entrepreneurs is, as you said, they hate doing administrative stuff. And they think, well, if I hate it, then they project that onto everybody else. Everybody else must hate it. Therefore, it's like this demeaning job. And why would anybody want to do this crap work? And I can see where that would get in the way. But yeah, that's really interesting that there are people who feel like this is their calling and they're excited about doing that.
They love it, right? And they love the impact. They love getting to be a part of it. And there are many others that we see once they get them, but just kind of going into it. The other one I'd see, again, before they'd hire, I would see very much a she's the one type of mindset. So I'm now desperate and I need help and I've decided I'm getting this assistant and, prayed about it and I'm doing this thing. And then it's like, man, I met my sister's friend at the coffee shop the other day, and she has the perfect skill set to be an executive assistant. So it's there's no interviewing. There's no sometimes, look, that works, right? What we love hiring off referrals. But as an example for our business, we'll go through 100 candidates on average before we hire one. So, it's just and this is one of the most important roles in the business and one of those roles that you don't have 10 of. You don't have 10 executive assistants generally, but you might have 10 salespeople on your team. So you can kind of measure this performance peer to peer. They've got this community, but for an executive assistant, it's different and it directly impacts the entrepreneur.
Hey, it's Todd here. We'll get back to the show in a second, but real quick, what if you're leaving profit on the table because there's a crucial phase of every construction project that you're already doing, but you're just doing it too late? If you're a custom home builder, a remodeler, or a commercial GC doing over $1 million a year, here's the hard truth. You could be carrying risk way too long, leaving your profits and your company exposed unnecessarily. Maybe you're scrambling to lock in subs and materials at the last minute, dealing with profit erosion because of unexpected cost increases and scope gaps. What if there's one step that your competitors are using to boost profits on their projects that you don't even know about? Well, that crucial phase is the buyout phase. A lot of small construction businesses don't have an effective buyout process or may not even know what it is. That's why I put together the How to Buy Out a Construction Project Playbook. It's a free step-by-step guide that shows you how to structure your buyout, how to lock in pricing, secure subs, and protect your profits before you even show up on site. There's a playbook you can download, a masterclass training video, and a buyout checklist you can just download, print, and start using on every project. Think about it. Would it be a bad idea to spend a few minutes to download a playbook that could add 3, 5, or 7 points to your bottom line net profit on every project? It's a simple adjustment that you can make in a short amount of time that has a huge impact potentially. So go grab your copy now over at constructionleadingedge.com/buyout. That's constructionleadingedge.com/BUYOUT. Now, let's get back to the episode. This is something I see a lot in the work that we do is the business owner is the bottleneck. They are the lid on the organization. What are some symptoms or some indicators that somebody is the bottleneck in their business? What would be some of those symptoms you would tell people to look for if they're curious? Am I the bottleneck in this business? If they're asking that question, what sort of symptoms would you tell them to look for?
I mean, I would love to actually, if I could quote the great Todd here, because I listened to a podcast before I came on here, but you said questions, right? And I was like, oh my goodness, it's like he's reading mail, right? Of people here, because if you're asking the question, oftentimes, did you do this? Did you place the order? Did you schedule this person? Multiple people trying to pick up your slack. You're not sure who owns it. Like those are all kind of symptoms that you're a bottleneck in your business, whether it's actually not having process, like you said, oftentimes that we both know that that's the case and it's really, really important to have. But if you're hearing that and you're doing it at home and you're forgetting to renew your insurance or you're forgetting about Christmas until the day before or all those kind of things, then there might be a symptom here. And that's that you just need some support in your life. An executive assistant could be a big unlock.
If every problem lands in your lap, if it seems like you get by just because you have a good memory, or maybe things are slipping through the cracks, if you feel like you just have a bunch of people who are bringing problems to you, not bringing solutions, those are pretty common indicators that I've seen as well that say you're the bottleneck. And that's good news and bad news. It's bad news that you have to recognize, oh, I'm the problem here. I can't blame it on customers, people, subcontractors. I can't blame it on the economy. But the good news is you can control that. If you're the problem, that means that you're the solution as well. I want to talk about something else. You said that a good executive assistant can 5x, maybe even 10x the entrepreneur's productivity. Can you give some practical examples of how that math works out? I think some people might be struggling to see how can somebody double or 5x my productivity?
Well, I mean, I think it's best to just test it yourself. Okay. Like, so I think that one, the limiting beliefs, and we can go into more of them, but the limiting beliefs of what an executive assistant is often the problem where people struggle or they've made a bad hire, right? And so they don't really believe it. They don't believe that it can be true. And so oftentimes they just settle for delegation. I have an assistant that I can delegate to, and that's good enough. What we're really talking about when I talk about 5 and 10x return, we're talking about a superpowered assistant where the assistant becomes a leader, right? You're the boss. Flip delegation, literally taking things off your plate. They're anticipating you, they're working ahead of you, allowing you to work in your unique ability, right? And so the way the math works, that like just to kind of test it for yourself, you could go to superpoweredbook.com. We have some downloads that will take you through it. But it basically is like take an inventory of how are you spending your time. Take 2 weeks of time of inventory and just write down as you go different things that you're doing day in, day out, personally and professionally, right? And then start looking through there and seeing, what are the tiny things, those little tasks that are just eating up big chunks of your time, right? What are the tedious, those things that are just not good use of your time, right? Or there's like, you can do them, but they're just tedious, they're draining, right? Which again, draining, when I'm drained, I want to bring my best creative work to the strategy, to the biggest customer, to the whatever. But if I'm whipped by dealing with some report or something, right? Like I'm literally sapping my power, my energy, my most creative for these, like in these tedious tasks that I'm doing day in, day out. And so the math on that doesn't work, right? Time consuming, important, not urgent. There's all these things that we do as entrepreneurs where it's like 80% of the results come from actually 20% of the work that we're doing, right? How do we find a really great partner like that can actually help you coordinate the team and do some of it themselves to help reduce that 80%? So your 20% is closer to 20%, but you're still getting the impact, but without all the time. Identifying teachable things, right? There's so many things that we all do and we plan to delegate, like I've done this, right? Like, oh, okay, well, I've got a CFO and I need to delegate, hand this off to the CFO, but I'm too damn busy to do it, right? So then what, like, I don't ever get around to do it. I just need an afternoon to sort of like get that, so that I can hand it off. Well, again, with an executive assistant, creating that space where I have time to work on those things, that's a huge impact. It allows me to then pour into my other team, free the executive assistant for a moment. Now I have more time to actually help my ops person with that problem so we can make it go away, not just with this one time, but forever, right? And then there's time sensitive stuff like, oh my gosh, I can't tell you the number of clients that have hired us and they told us in stories about basically what drove them to it was they lost a really big, I can manage my own email and I've got this AI thing or whatever, but you miss a really big client opportunity because it sits in your inbox or you didn't see it, or you didn't check your junk folder. Like, just like that, you start hitting some of those, or heck, just showing up to a meeting prepared. Like, you have a much higher level, a higher opportunity of getting the big deal done when you actually show up and you're prepared. So the whole goal, of just say, measure it yourself, look at it, categorize the things I just said. Like I said, superpoweredbook.com, you can download it and do this yourself. And then the goal is to spend 80% of your time doing things that you love that really, really unlock the most potential in your business. And in that is easy 5 to 10x. I mean, you'll see it.
I came up with this concept several years ago that's $1,000 an hour activities. So as a business owner, there are certain things you can do that are worth $1,000 an hour, sometimes $10,000 an hour. Sales, hiring, really high leverage tasks. And one of the mindsets I think that holds people back sounds something like, well, I hate spending money. It's easier for me just to do it myself. So why would I hire somebody? It's only 15 minutes a day, or it's easier for me just to do it myself, and I hate spending money. But when you think about like the 20% of your activities that are worth $1,000 an hour, then every hour you're spending on something that you can get done for less than $1,000 an hour, you're getting hit with that opportunity cost. So even if it's $75 an hour, if it frees you up to do $1,000 an hour activities, you're still $925 an hour ahead. This is a different way of looking at it, but I really think this I hate to spend money thing holds a lot of people back. I see a lot of people who are stuck because they think of hiring staff as a cost and they hate to spend money. But when you hire the right people, it's an investment. And investing in people provides an ROI. So it's like, if you could get a 25% ROI on an investment, you would be an idiot not to invest that money. And for good people, you can often get like a 50% ROI or a 100% ROI. So it's a different way of looking at it, and probably a different way of hiring and setting it up.
I love the way you frame that. I think that's like bang on. And what I would say, it stems from oftentimes people have this time and effort type of mindset to their businesses in general. A lot of entrepreneurs do because they've grown up in a culture where maybe they were the guy working for the company first, right? And so they had to work a lot of hours at it going, and they just never got away from that. And so this mindset of time and effort, when the truth is, we live in a results economy. None of your customers, their customers don't care. They just want the result. They want the result that everyone agreed on, delivered, right? And a lot of times get trapped in this kind of like our type of mindset. But the thing that I would say is the real exponentials come. It's like, if I could do one thing next year, if I could do one deal and it took me 4 hours and it 5x'd my business because that's the kind of deal I was working on. Like, did I do my job? Did I work enough? Like, I don't know, you know what I mean? But people, I think we get trapped in that. And then the other thing with the people, I think sometimes there's a little bit of you asked about mindsets earlier. There's a little bit of like, I'm afraid to let people in here a little bit. And the truth is, I really, really cringe when I meet the entrepreneurs, like, no one can do it like me and I might as well do it myself. And it's like, if your goal is to always maintain status quo and try to just like keep your business alive, that's a really great way to operate. But if you ever want to exit or you ever want to pass it on the next generation, maybe you have family in the business or whatever, the most valuable businesses are ones that you're not super needed, right? And that's where you can get 1,000x. I mean, I know when we sold that insurance business, it was because I got way higher multiples. And then for a while before we sold, I was buying our competitors. I'd always pay a much higher multiple to someone that wasn't needed in the business, right? I'd still try to keep them around because, but the business was worth more when they didn't have to be there chained to their desk every day and they were the source of all knowledge and information in the business.
It reminds me, like, the time and effort bias, I think is really big, because there's this question. If I run into somebody in the construction world and I spent 20 or 25 years in operations, like running projects, running companies, had my own business, and there's this question that construction people like to ask each other. If they find out, or if they see one of their buddies, they'll ask, "You guys staying busy? You guys staying busy?" It's like busy is good. And it's this bias that, well, if you're not working 40, 50, 60 hours a week in your business, you're not busy. And if you're not busy, what's wrong? And busyness is not effectiveness. And I can tell you, in my own personal business, I made a move last year, or made a decision over the past 12 months that took me maybe 8 to 12 hours total. And getting that in place will have more effect on my long-term wealth than anything else I've done in the past 5 years. And I was able to do that because I had the time to think strategically and actually had the bandwidth to think at that level. If I was working 60 hours a week, I would be so busy putting out fires, I wouldn't have time to do that. As an entrepreneur, your time is one of your company's most valuable resources. Not just your most valuable resources, but one of your company's most valuable resources. And your team is counting on you to use it wisely. And I think a lot of the symptoms and chaos that people are dealing with points to the fact that the entrepreneur is not using their time wisely, and they're stuck in this firefighting mode.
What I would see is when I was buying our competitors, I cannot tell you the number of companies that I bought because I think the entrepreneur was just burned out. They were just burned out. They were dealing with the same problems over and over again. And it eventually slowly began to kill their vision, their passion for the business. I never met the entrepreneur that worked exclusively in their like unique giftedness, that worked a lot and was like too tired, right? Like so it's not an hours thing either. It's like when people are really, really fired up in what the work that they're doing, like it changes the game. And for everyone around them, it's contagious, right? So I can't tell you though, the number of people that like they sold to us. I mean, and I really just believe they were just beat down and tired. And they may have like made the go a lot longer if they just managed their energy a little bit. They hadn't had a vacation in 5 years. And they hadn't, I didn't have an executive assistant. I was in the insurance business. We were helping people, but I didn't have a company that did it yet. But I just remember thinking, man, like almost sad, like, wow, this guy's hanging it up. But I wonder if he's just really just burned out versus, like really that he wants to sell.
One of the questions people have is, when it comes to hiring staff, should I hire the person first Or should I establish the processes and systems that they're going to use first? And then how might an executive assistant help with creating systems and processes in your mind?
Oftentimes, one of the delays, people will say, well, I read your book, we're going to get an executive assistant. And I don't care if they do it through us. I just love seeing people freed up, right? But they're like, I'm going to do it, but I got to get my house in order first. And I'm just like, man, I was like, I've spent, sometimes I know these people pretty well. It's like, I spent enough time with you to know that you are just not an organized person. And that's okay. You're super amazing at these other things. But why would you organize the system and process for the person who's actually uniquely gifted and probably really cares about the system and process? Why wouldn't you let them be a part of doing it for you versus you trying to do it? And here's the thing, you'll be delaying forever because most of the time that's the work that always falls down. If you hate it and it's not that important, you're getting by, like that stuff just never gets done.
What I've seen a lot is a classic visionary. Big picture, operating broad brushstrokes. They want to make deals. They want to scale the business, and they recognize we've got to have systems and processes in place. And they fall into this when-then fallacy, which is when I have more time, then I'll put systems in place, or when things slow down, then I'll do this. It's really delusional. It's sort of like saying, when my broken arm starts feeling better, then I'll go to the hospital and fix it. That's an unlock, is to recognize if you're a visionary, you're not going to do it. There's no way you're going to sit down and hammer out processes. You're just not wired for that. You hate it, you suck at it, and you're just deluding yourself by saying, I'm going to hire somebody when I get this stuff in place. So
the other thing that happens, and this goes into another fallacy I see that holds entrepreneurs back on this, is there is energy trapped up in doing that. So there's negative energy. You're either losing your confidence because you're flogging yourself because you're going 2 years and you still haven't put the stupid process in place. You haven't cleaned up, right? Or you get this sort of dopamine hit that you thought about it. No, I'm going to do it, right? And it's like you feel like you did something, but thinking about it is not the same as doing the thing, right? As all happily married couples will tell you, right? So I see this with entrepreneurs and that just having that. The other way it shows up, since you asked about the assistant thing and virtual, I see people that, I got to have someone in person. And I will see sometimes gregarious, visionary, social entrepreneurs that will have a great idea. They'll walk out and talk to their assistant for 2 hours, and then they'll feel like they did something, right? And the truth is, it's just like this little dopamine hit. Well, I communicated the vision, but we didn't actually do anything to move anything forward. So I actually try to get entrepreneurs, I'll ask them the question like, hey, how do you grow your business? How often is it behind the desk, right? And if it's not, most of them will tell you not a lot, right? So if you're going to be out and about growing the business, then your assistant's going to be virtual to you, right? No matter whether they're sitting back at your HQ or not. So anyway, just a little thing that I've noticed, because again, it all ties back to that illusion of getting something done because I thought about it.
yeah, there's several phases. There's the idea, the concept. Oh, we should do this. And then we get this, the visionary gets the hit and they start to cast the vision and paint the picture. And then what needs to happen next is somebody needs to take that picture and then create the process, the tools, create everything to turn that into something that's usable. And then comes the hard part, which is implementation. And typically visionaries fizzle out about shortly after the idea creation. And it gets into, now I have to sit down and think about this. Like, nah, there's a shiny object. Or I should go do this, or I should run out to the job site, or I should probably go find anything else that my big visionary tendencies like more than sitting down and creating this stuff. So this is where I think there's a good, where we've seen a good synergy is the visionary has the big picture. And then for construction businesses, we have the tools and the frameworks and the processes. And then couple that with a good executive assistant or somebody who's good at creation and the detail work and then driving implementation. That is the best of both worlds. And we've seen this with several clients who've said they've recognized I'm not the guy or the gal to create these things or implement them. I just want them in place, and I'm going to outsource the creation. I want to get the frameworks and then find somebody who can help me create all of these things. And then it's hands off. It's who, not how, right? It's the Dan Sullivan.
Great book.
It's the book, who,
And they'll
not
go
how.
and
It's
they'll
like,
go and they'll go faster, right? To your point, I was listening, like I said, I listened to one of your podcasts recently, and you talked about the most expensive option, right? Is the DIY, right? And you started going into, and for us in our business, we were like considering whether or not we should adopt EOS as for the business entrepreneurial operating system. And I went around and I asked 10 of my entrepreneur friends that were all using EOS, and I said, hey, how's it working for you? How far are you into driving into the culture of your organization? Where are you? And it was so funny because everyone who DIY'd it was nowhere near where they wanted to be. But everyone who used someone that had the expertise, knew how to do, help them get there, they were light years ahead of the other businesses, which caused me to actually go ahead and hire the implementer. I was like, this is a no-brainer. It sounded expensive, but I realized that these guys weren't moving. And so, guys and gals. And so that, for me, I want to maximize ROI. And sometimes that means you got to invest a little more.
there's the ROI, the return on investment, but then there's this acronym a lot of people don't consider. I didn't consider for a long time, which was the COI, the cost of inaction.
Yes.
And how much is it costing me not to have these things in place? It's been 6 months, 2 years. You've been thinking about it. There's an emotional toll of I don't know that I'm ever going to get this done. Then there's a financial toll of opportunities that are lost and profit bleeds and things like that. So there's a cost of inaction. So I want to talk about some particulars about the way you guys operate. I was very impressed when I went through the process a few months ago with Superpowers, and was very impressed with the matching process, the coaching process, the way you guys operate. I've gone through some agencies in the past, and they hand over a candidate, and then that's kind of it. But you guys operate very differently. So how does Superpowers match clients with the right EA? Can you talk about what that process looks like?
I would say it starts with the discovery process. We have a belief we're in the business of helping entrepreneurs reach new levels of freedom and growth. And so for us, that is our North Star. That's what we're trying to do. Sometimes that means a client that we can support. Other times we're sending them in other directions. So it all for us starts with a discovery call, which is really helping the entrepreneur get clear on their future, their vision, their superpower, right? And then what is standing in the way, right? And when we're really, really get them super clear on what's in the way, then it's easier to know whether or not we can support them, right? And so our commitment, though, is the value first. We create a lot of value on these calls. In fact, we have people we've referred to other companies that we felt would be better suited that still refer people, even though they're using one of our competitors, they still refer clients to our discovery process, because at the end, we give them a summary of we record the conversation. So it's your actual own words, a summary of what you need and a recommendation. And then if people want to move forward, then we get a little bit deeper. We're taking profiles of the entrepreneur's personality profile. We've already got a tape of what's standing in the way, so we know what needs to come off the plate, right? And so then what that allows us to do is to use our unique hiring process to basically what we're constantly, I said hunt earlier, I wasn't making that up. We'll go through maybe 1,000 candidates. We'll do 100 interviews per one person we hire. And it's all we do. So it sounds like kind of whoa, but the truth is that's how committed we are to trying to find that right match. And so what we're always doing is always interviewing. And again, it's more of a casting and audition process. We're showing us before the client ever meets the assistant, we're looking for that right fit. We're looking for skills demonstration. We're testing their ability to think creatively on the fly, including stuff like we put them in no-win situations. Hey, Todd's in Toronto with his most important client, and his daughter has a ballet recital that evening. The client meeting's running long. He's going to miss his flight. What do you do? Right? And so we're not looking, there's no win answer, right? And they'll want to be like, oh, well, I'll call him. You can't reach him. He's in with his most important client. And so what we're looking for is I'm going to book another flight. I'm going to let his wife know. I'm going to see if they can have is there any place we can get them food on the way? That's the kind of thinking we're looking. Can I think ahead? Can I think on the fly? And then once we know that we've got a match, then we bring them together, and we have basically an introductory session for them. And then the entrepreneur can thumbs up, thumbs down. And then the real work begins. And we have a crawl, walk, run process. You talked about things that trip people up. One of the things we learned early on with the business, and I saw a little bit of signs with this when I was coaching entrepreneurs when we weren't in the business, we're just helping people, is entrepreneurs often have such a strong future focus that everything is all they can see is the delta between where they are and where they want to go. And Dan Sullivan, since we mentioned him earlier, calls that the gap, right? They can't see the progress they made. They can only see what's not. And so what we see sometimes, we know where an assistant entrepreneur pairing should be at 30 days, right? Do they really know the entrepreneur? At 60 days, do they really understand their entrepreneur and how they prioritize things? Like if they've got 5 things on their plate and only one can get done, what's the thing that they're going to want to prioritize? Can they start to understand that and then anticipate? That's when the real magic happens, when they're looking ahead, right? So this crawl, walk, run, a development process where we're coaching the assistant on almost a weekly basis. And then entrepreneur, oftentimes we're doing at a minimum a monthly check-in. So we're helping them elevate the value of the relationship. And it cuts both ways. It unlocks faster acceleration in that relationship. It's still a crock pot. It's not a microwave. We're not selling microwaves, but we are cranking that crock pot up on high. So we see that. The other thing we do is sometimes we have to intervene. An entrepreneur, they'll come in so whipped and resigned. And oh my gosh, I should have hired y'all 2 years ago. And then they start getting some traction with a mediocre assistant. And sometimes we have to step in and say, hey, I know you love this person, but they're not getting it done for you. And we think we can do better. And it's rare that happens, probably about 1 out of 10 times, but sometimes we have to do it. And it's coaching the entrepreneur that we can get there. We're doing it day in, day out.
Hey guys, Todd here. If you own a custom home building or remodeling business, let me ask you a few questions. First, how often do you wake up in the middle of the night thinking about project details, financial issues, or something else about your business and you can't go back to sleep? Are you spending more than 10 hours a week working in the business, wearing multiple hats, putting out fires, and you feel like you can't work on your business as much as you want? Number 3, do you have enough documented systems and processes, or is it all in your head? Number 4, how good is your handoff of projects from the office to the field? Are you getting hammered by the just enough to start trap, doing just enough to start? And then lastly, do you feel stuck? Do you feel like you need to grow, but you're scared to, and you don't know how to do it? Maybe it feels like you need to hire, but you're afraid to make a mistake, and you're worried you can't afford to hire somebody. Well, if any of that resonates with you, you're not alone. And if you want to make your business a source of more freedom and a source of less stress, to systematize your construction business, and our team here at Construction Leading Edge has helped over 300 builders and remodelers systematize their business, and we can help you too. The first step is to schedule a call with my team by going to constructionleadingedge.com/apply. That's constructionleadingedge.com/APPLY, or you can send a text to this number, 877-755-2410 with the word apply. That's 877-755-2410. Just text the word apply and we'll get back to you. Now, let's get back to our episode. You mentioned coaching entrepreneurs. What would you say are the top 2 or 3 things that entrepreneurs need to be coached on to delegate better? Some practical advice.
I can run down a few. So first, I would say that it's important that you find a way to communicate clearly. There's a lot of different great resources out there. Both of us, have a coach background. Impact Filter is a great tool, some of those things. But most of the time, entrepreneurs, that they'll have this tendency to just kind of seagull, they'll fly over and crap, right, on the desk, and then they'll fly out. And oftentimes they don't know what to do. The team just doesn't know what to do with it, right? And so helping them have a space to get clarity when it's a half-baked idea and really, really understand whether or not you want them to take action or not on it, right? And so everyone's got a little different way of doing that. For most of my team, if I don't give them like a well thought out form, they know they don't have to do it. I'm just sharing idea energy. For my executive assistant, we literally have an app at Superpower. I don't know if you can see it here, but it's like I just push a button and it pulls up here. And then I can just hit this record. I do a voice recording, I send it. And then I have a daily sync with my executive assistant. So it's oftentimes once we've gone through the crawl, walk, run process, right? They can just hit it and then it just shows up as a done, right? They report back, close the file on this one, it's done. Other times it's like, hey, I don't know what you meant there. And so I have a daily sync, just quick 15-minute meeting where they can ask me questions, clarifying questions, etc. Or, hey, here's what I've done with this so far. Am I on track? So I see this like I'm just going to throw it and that's it, and not creating the like parameters around a good delegation. That'd be the first one.
The worst thing you can do is share a half-baked idea with your team, because this has happened to me a lot in my career. And the question is, what do I do with this? Is this mine now? Are we going to continue this conversation? Where does this fall on the priority list? And I think the visionary often thinks, whew, all right, I've just vomited all of this vision and information onto my team, and they're going to take it from here. And the team is wiping this stuff off their face. And like, what do I do with all of this? And they're probably thinking, don't worry. This is just like, he just does this every 2 weeks or so, and he'll forget about it. Don't worry. And it creates this real frustration for a lot of people. So yeah, having a fully baked plan that you can hand to your team. These are the outcomes that I want. Here are the parameters. Here are the guardrails. Here's the time frame. Here's the expectations. This is what that looks like. The more you can articulate that, the better. And until then, just don't share it with your team.
Or again, executive assistant's unique. I'd almost say share it. That way the idea has a resting place, but allow them the space to follow up, to manage that to-do list. Okay, what is this? You shared it. What's the what's the urgency around it? And again, sometimes it's just sharing stuff that, again, they'll learn to anticipate. The right one's going to learn to be able to discern that, and they're going to, in a very polite way, just be inquisitive and give you a little bit of accountability to make sure that whatever it is clear before you share it with the rest of your team. And then they can help manage you to get it done depending on the priority level, or make it go away if it's something that's simple, but they can understand, hey, I want follow up on Todd about that thing. My executive assistant would know what that means at this point, most likely, because they know context. Okay, how do I know Todd? What's the thing, right? And then they can just, I got it done. Or the better answer sometimes is like, I actually already have done it. I love that one. It's like, yeah, and I love that for entrepreneurs. The other kind of trip up I see is sometimes entrepreneurs, they'll like hold it too close to the vest. I would say the entrepreneur, your assistant most likely doesn't want to be you. It's a little bit tougher in the US because there can be a little bit of more of an entitlement mindset sometimes, depending on where you get your person from. They love this person, this work. They love supporting entrepreneurs. They're grateful for the job. They chose this career because it provides some of the freedom that they want. They don't want to be an entrepreneur. They don't want to be you. And so the more you can share, right? Like, hey, when I'm business, I'll fly coach. But when I travel with my wife, I'd like to go first class. Or I like to stay at these types of hotels. Or, hey, like just being open, like real transparent about that. And including like with the appropriate permissions and controls, letting them have access to your credit card information, right? Letting them purchase flowers for your wife when you're on the road, or setting up the date night, or planning the travel, or just some of those things that also are just taking brain cycles and taking you away from, doing the work that you love most. And I find that entrepreneurs, they have this thing. It's like, well, they're going to think more, or they're going to want more money, or they just have all this like kind of baggage around, and it doesn't allow them to really let the assistant help them. But if you'll go so far to share that, and including appropriately in the right time, when we coach people through this, saying what I said to my assistant, like, hey, I don't like conflict, and I know I need to deal with this. I'm going to try to avoid it. I need your help to do it. Just sharing that kind of stuff, like they love putting on their cape and helping you. Delegated access. I see entrepreneurs, I can't let go of my email. I need to see every single email going through. And I say, okay, if it's that important, just have them draft your emails. And then once you've drafted, you blind copy them. And then eventually you can just let them handle your emails, right? But there's nothing in your business that in my mind, you can't get help for, from someone, the right person at the right time.
You've got an audience of a lot of construction entrepreneurs, and you've coached and worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of entrepreneurs at this point. For the folks who are stuck spending too much of their time in firefighting, they recognize that they're stuck working in their business and they don't have the time that they want to work on their business. What's some advice you would give to them?
We used to serve a number of construction clients in particular back in the day. And the real big shifts that unlock your next level of growth, they require doing something different than you're already doing. And sometimes that's moving from an expense mindset to an investment mindset. It's realizing that your most important team members that you don't ever worry about your customers with, it's because they're really great investments. They're really great people, right? And so instead of the customer's always right, it's like, no, when I have the right team members on the team, my team's always right. I don't have to worry about the customer anymore. Dan Sullivan will say this, right? The skills that get you out of Egypt don't necessarily get you to the promised land. And so if you really have a desire to grow your business and go to the next level, you're just going to have to might seem scary, but it'll be okay. You can do it. Many people have done it before, and great success can and will come if you'll stay the course.
If you feel like you're hitting a wall and you're stuck, it's very likely that you're at the point where what got you here won't get you there. And you have to think differently and do some different things. Otherwise, you'll get stuck. And it's not a good place to be. We put together a resource. So for you guys listening, if you're interested, like, hey, I want to learn more about Superpowers HQ. I'm curious how an executive assistant might work in my business. So if that's you, we've put together a resource for you to help you with delegation, how an EA can help you as a construction business owner, and some best practices, and then put some information for you so you can get in touch with Superpowers HQ to take the first step when the time is right. So we'll have a link to that in the show notes. Be sure to check that out if you want that resource. If you're even thinking about, like, how can I delegate better? How might an EA help with my business? Then there'll be a link in the show notes for you there. Where should people go if they want to learn more about what you guys do? And you mentioned the book. Where should people go for that?
Yeah, so the company's Superpowers, the superpowershq.com is if you know you want to book a discovery call. If you want to learn more of the book or get some of the resources we talked about, it's superpoweredbook.com. We co-authored that book with Shannon Waller, who's one of the great minds on entrepreneurial teamwork. And so it's full of insights and action. I would encourage you, even if you have a really great executive assistant right now, I can't tell you the number of people that I've met where they actually read the book with their assistant or gave it to them for them to read and said that the book itself has improved the quality of their relationship. So, again, like I said it on the onset of the show, I just want to help more entrepreneurs get freedom, new levels of freedom and growth. And so if that's the way to do it, the book, or maybe an entrepreneur that you've got that freedom and you know that they just need to hear it, please share Todd's podcast, and the book would be great too.
Great stuff. We'll have all of those links in the show notes. So my challenge for you listening is, what are you going to do with this? If some of this has resonated with you and you're like, yeah, that's me, I should probably do something, then my challenge would be take some action. Go download the book, download our guide, book a discovery call, take some action, do something, even if it's just a 5-minute action item. Otherwise, the last 45, 50 minutes has just been entertainment. So it's all about implementation and taking action. So that's my challenge for you. Steven, thanks for the work you're doing, and thanks for taking the time to be on here, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate having you. It's always good to be with you, and love what you're doing for your clients as well.
All right. Thanks, Steven.
Thanks.
Hey, before you go, if you're a custom builder, remodeler, or commercial GC doing over $1 million a year, what if you're missing one crucial step that could protect your margins before you even break ground? That's why I put together the free How to Buy Out a Construction Project Playbook. It's going to show you how to lock in costs, secure your subs, and protect your profit before jobs start. Would it be a bad idea to spend a few minutes to download a playbook that could add 3 to 7 points of net profit to your bottom line on every project? You can go get your copy of that playbook and that training for free at constructionleadingedge.com/buyout. There's no guarantees how long this will be free. It's available now for a limited time. That's constructionleadingedge.com/buyout. BUYOUT.